We all have this dream of financial independence, right? The freedom to just live life completely on our own terms. But here's the thing, that dream doesn't look the same for everybody. The path to freedom isn't just one single road. It's more like a whole landscape of possibilities with some very, very different destinations.
No, really, just take a second and actually picture it. What do you see? Is it a simple, quiet life with all the time in the world for your passions? Or is it a life full of travel, comfort, and, well, abundance? Your answer to that question, that's the key to everything else we're going to talk about.
See, these different visions of freedom really create two ends of a spectrum. On one side, you've got a more minimalist approach. It's all about simplicity and retiring as early as humanly possible. And on the other side, a life of luxury and comfort, which, as you can imagine, needs a completely different financial game plan.
And that is the crucial point here. The whole financial independence retire early movement, what we call FIRE, it's not some rigid one-size-fits-all plan. It's a really flexible framework. And depending on the kind of lifestyle you choose, you'll probably end up following one of two main paths, lean FIRE or fat FIRE.
Okay, so let's dive into the path that promises the quickest escape from the 9-to-5 grind. This is lean FIRE, and its entire philosophy is really built around speed and efficiency.
So what's the big idea? Well, at its core, lean FIRE means getting to financial independence by intentionally designing a low-cost life. The goal is super simple. Slash your expenses way down so you can hit your financial target and retire much, much sooner.
So what does this look like in the real world? It often means consciously choosing a smaller home, cutting way back on non-essential luxuries, and just making frugal, intentional choices every single day. The result of all that? Well, you end up with significantly lower annual expenses.
And this is where it gets really, really powerful. See, when you need less money to live on each year, the total amount you need to save for retirement just plummets. Let's look at an example to see how this actually works.
So let's just imagine for a second that you've designed a life where you're happy and totally fulfilled on a pretty modest annual budget. For this example, let's just say that budget is $30,000 a year. Now, I know for some that might sound pretty tight, but for someone who's really dedicated to lean FIRE, this can be a very achievable and even comfortable target, especially when you think about not having the costs of commuting or work clothes or all those other job-related expenses.
So how do you figure out the final number you need to save? Well, the FIRE community often uses something called the 4% rule. It's based on historical market returns, and the idea is you can safely withdraw 4% of your investment portfolio each year without it running out. So to find your target, you just flip the math. You multiply your annual expenses by 25.
And there you have it. Your target, your FIRE number, is $750,000. Now look, that is still a huge amount of money, no question. But for a lot of people, this feels way more attainable than those traditional multi-million-dollar retirement goals. It makes retiring early feel like a real possibility.
But hey, what if minimalism just isn't your style? What if you want that financial freedom without giving up a high standard of living? Well, that brings us to the other end of the spectrum, fat FIRE.
Fat FIRE is basically for anyone who wants to retire early, but without making huge lifestyle sacrifices. The goal here is to build a nest egg that's large enough to fund a comfortable, maybe even a luxurious lifestyle forever.
So what does that life look like? Well, it could mean larger homes, frequent international travel, dining out whenever you feel like it, and just having a much higher budget for all your hobbies and luxuries. It's really about having financial freedom with a lot fewer financial constraints.
Of course, a lifestyle like this is going to require a very different financial target. The journey might be longer, for sure, but the destination is definitely a bit more plush. So let's run the numbers.
Let's say your ideal retirement involves spending about $100,000 per year. This would allow for a very comfortable life in most places, with plenty of room for travel, hobbies, and all those other luxuries we talked about.
And you know what? The math is exactly the same. That 4% rule still applies. So to find our target number, we just take that annual spending and, you guessed it, we multiply it by 25.
And that gives us a fat FIRE number of $2.5 million. It's a much, much bigger mountain to climb, but for those who really value that higher level of comfort and security in retirement, well, that's the goal they're shooting for.
Okay, so we've got two very different destinations, a faster path to a simpler life or a longer path to a more luxurious one. Let's actually put them side by side so we can really see the trade-offs.
When you put them side by side like this, the trade-off becomes crystal clear, doesn't it? With lean fire, you're sacrificing a higher spending level to get your time back sooner. With fat fire, you're trading more years of working for greater comfort and luxury in retirement. It's a direct relationship. Your lifestyle choice dictates your spending, and that sets your ultimate financial goal.
But here's what's so important to remember. These are not the only two options. Most people find their ideal life somewhere in the middle. Maybe they call it chubby fire or just fire. It's a whole spectrum, not a simple black and white choice.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. The FIRE movement isn't about forcing yourself into a life of deprivation or chasing endless luxury. It is all about being intentional. It's about consciously deciding what you value and then aligning your finances to build a life that gives you that freedom and flexibility.
So, in the end, the question isn't which path is better. The only question that really matters is the one we started with. What does freedom actually look like to you? And what kind of life are you going to intentionally design to get there?